So we've inserted some data into our database, which is great. We've now got the skills to create the database, create the table, and insert all of that data. But it's kind of useless if we can't actually get the data back. And so that's kind of the next step, is to figure out, well, how do we read data back from the database? So I've gone ahead and I've loaded the tests for my exercise, and then I've executed them. And you can see that the selectall.sql should be counting a total of 5 rows, but it's not. So clearly something's gone wrong because I haven't actually implemented anything. So let's go ahead and actually do the implementation next. Okay, so let's jump over to our code window, and we're going to go to the select all file, and we're going to write a basic select statement. Now, the most basic select statement that you can write is probably select star from mover vehicles dot vehicles. So let's actually just take that without running any tests or anything. We're going to take that and we're going to save the file first off. But now I'm going to just paste that right in here. This select is non-destructive. It doesn't change any data, so I can run this as many times as I want, which makes it a good thing to use for experimentation purposes. So let's go ahead and execute that, and you can see that it returns the vehicles that we created previously. Okay, now often when we go to actually implement this, we would implement it by selecting all of the fields. But there's some drawbacks to that. If we want to select all of the fields, we need to pull all of that data into memory. We need to transfer it over the network. And the more data there is, the more that's going to become a problem. So for a very simple table with very basic data, maybe a select star is fine. But in our case, we're not actually interested in all the fields. We're only interested in specific fields. And what we're going to do is we're going to alter this statement so that it only looks at those fields. Now, what are the fields we need? Well, we need the ID, we need the vehicle type, we want the make, the model, and the color. What this does is by restricting ourselves only to the fields that we're interested in, we reduce the amount of memory that we need to use, and we reduce the amount of network bandwidth that we need to use. And so, again, for a small table with a limited number of fields with a limited amount of data, maybe we don't care that much. For a big table where there's maybe many thousands of rows or even millions of rows, and potentially each of these rows might have a significant amount of data in them, this could be a game changer. So it all depends on your use case. We're going to play it safe, and we're just going to make sure we only select the fields that we're interested in. Now let's jump over and actually execute the tests. So we'll go over to our terminal where we've already got the failing test, and we'll just execute it again. And hopefully, if we've done everything right, it should succeed. All tests pass, so it looks like it actually did work. You'll note that it's actually in the test, it's actually checking to see that certain columns don't exist. And so it's looking to see if we did a select star or if we actually were a little more careful. Okay, now let's go ahead and try and actually execute this and see what our results look like. So jumping over to our code window, we're just going to copy and paste our select command, and then we'll jump over to our database terminal again here, and we will execute that. And so you see, comparing the two results, before we had a lot of columns, now we have a much smaller set of columns. And so this starts to look more like what we need for our actual implementation. We now know how to write data to the database and how to read it back. That puts us in a pretty good place because now we can actually use the database for real, but there's still plenty more to learn, and we'll see that in future exercises.